Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as transfer talks start for two teenage superstars potentially at Manchester United. We've also got prices being set by clubs. I told you the March international break would be the time that we start to get more clarity. Now, whether we're going to get clarity on who or what is going to leave and come into Manchester United, that's up for debate. But we've got Onana replacements, we've got goalkeepers coming in, we've got midfielders, we've got wingers, we've got number 10s and we've got strikers. All updates coming in this morning, as well as Fabrizio Romano drop that has just dropped in the last couple of minutes, which is why I was a little bit late. He's speaking about Rasmus and also about the striker situation at Manchester United. Of course, Ekitike last night scored a hat-trick for the French under-21s against England, having a very good season at Eintracht Frankfurt, actually having a better season than Sesko, and some people would say that Ekitike is a better all-rounder than Sesko, and you've seen what Mamouche has done at Man City in the last couple of months coming in from Eintracht Frankfurt. Then, you know, is that not another indicator that this lad might be quite an interesting player to bring in? But we'll bring you those Romano updates because I think still people think that there may be an opportunity to do a swap deal with Osimhen and Rasmus with Napoli. But I want to start off actually with a little bit more where we were going to start on the show today. Just before I start, we've set a little bit of a goal for the live chat today. There has been a lot of people saying, please release the full Dublin show to everybody. Well, the members have watched it. They've had 24 hours of it. We might release it today. Let's see if we can hit the goal. But if you are a member, Gareth Nolan and John is a new member and Gareth just gifted 5. So you could go and watch it if you're one of those. Right, let's start off. So a couple of stories this morning coming in around Tyler Dibbling at Southampton and Yildiz of Juventus, which is a player that we have been linked to a lot over the last few days. Now, in relation to Tyler Dibbling at Southampton, there is talk that the transfer talks have actually already opened up for him. He's definitely getting relegated. He plays for Southampton. Obviously, I think his contract's, a lot of people saying his contract's up in the next summer, but our transfer market has it down as 2027. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I want to start off with Yildiz because yes, it's Italian reports, and yes, you never know how this will pan out. But it is a player that I'm sure most of you know who it is, and you've seen bits of him. But I think for me, it's a really interesting player profile because obviously Turkish, 19 years of age. He reminds me, and you've got to be a certain age. I think when you hear these players, you're sort of like going, well, where does he play? What does he do? I think the thing that sort of, I mean, is this deal going to happen? I don't know. I mean, I think with Man United at the moment, you would always probably lean on a no. I think with Ekitike, I would say no, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think with someone like Yildiz, obviously you look at the way he plays, and he certainly would suit one of the positions behind the striker. I think, to be honest with you, the way he plays, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually ended up being a striker because he's quite a big lad. He reminds me of Ginola. He really reminds me of David Ginola in the sense that I don't really like associating young players with previous players, but I think it's always an easy way for people to try and understand a player that they haven't really seen. He reminds me of Ginola, the way he's got this very big stature. I mean, he's not like 6'5", but he's quite bulky and, you know, physically big for a traditional winger type. And he's got this a really good close control, and the way he's very powerful when he's in the dribble. But the thing that jumps out to me as well is that he reminds me a lot of, like, I don't know why you'd go for Yildiz when you've got Garnacho. I mean, look, obviously Garnacho can't play every week, and we are short on number 10s, but if the plan next season is to have Garnacho, Ahmad, Xerxes, maybe even Mason Mount, you bring Yildiz in, are we not stacked in that position? Asante says, is he not similar to Xerxes? I can sort of see that. But I think he's, look, I think he's a very exciting player. And look, Ginola, non-Man United player, was one of my favourite players to watch in the Premier League back in those times. So I like that profile of player. Remember, he's a year younger than Garnacho as well. So look, I like the player, I like the idea of it, and I like the fact that we're being linked to him, but I think my reservations would be, if you've got Garnacho, do you need Yildiz as well? Does it mean that Garnacho might be going in this summer? I mean, look, I still would say Garnacho heading out the door in January wasn't a rumour. It was a reality, and it could become a reality again. So, you know, I guess we'll have to wait and see how it works out. But that's a player I'd certainly start off with by saying I like the idea of Yildiz. Obviously, I think a lot of things would have to happen for that to happen, and I don't even know what price Juventus would be setting for him as well. As Mark Godsmark says, Ginola was immense at Spurs and Newcastle. He just had that amazing ability, Ginola, to be strong on the ball but quick across the first 2 yards, take people on confidently, and I can see that in Yildiz, and I think I think there's a very big chance he's going to end up being a very good player wherever he ends up. In relation to Tyler Dibbling, just very quickly, I think that I want to word this in the quiet. I don't think he's ready to be a Man United player for £40 million. The price that Southampton want for Tyler Dibbling, from what I've seen of him, there's no doubt there's a very talented player there, but I feel he's more raw than some of the younger players that we're looking at, and I think he's more of a project player, and I think if he came into a Man United shirt, you'd be waiting a few years before you realise what sort of player he actually is. So I think the price against Dibbling worries me a lot. Southampton are talking about 40, 50 million pounds. He's got Spurs written all over him, I think, Dibbling. But maybe Man United will make that move. But I look at Dibbling, and I get it. I understand why he's an interesting player, but I don't look at him and go, that's the sort of player we need to spend 40 million pounds on this summer. I think we've got enough players that are going to take a few years to get where they need to be. There are certain 19, 20-year-olds that you can bring in that are going to hit the ground running quicker. I think Dorgu has shown that. But with Dibbling, I feel he's more of a project that I'd probably... I mean, it doesn't mean we're not going to do it, but that's my feeling on that. I hope this menu story has some legs to it, says Harvey Spector. Thanks very much for your super chat. Music makes the world go round. Welcome to the Members Club. Hard Mod says, love you, Mark. Can you call my son Jack a Turbo Pratt, please? Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Hard Mod. Simin, welcome to the Members Club. And Pachu as well. No more youth. We need experience, says Harvey. I'm packed as a welcome to the Members Club as well. Remember, we've hit a target for you to hit if you want the release of the live show to everybody. We've hit a target in the live chat. Why is no one talking about Trent going to Madrid, says Ollie? Because it's the United stand and not the Liverpool stand. Want to talk about this Romano story that's come out, though. It literally came out in the last few minutes. Fabrizio Romano talking about the striker situation at Manchester United. And an interesting development here, because obviously we had the Ornstein update this week, basically talking about this Rasmus Osman swap being highly unlikely, Man United. And I do understand this. We can't, on one hand, sack half our workforce, and then on the other hand, be going out spending 60, 70 million pounds and giving 250 grand a week to Victor Osman. I don't know how that actually works. Fabrizio certainly hasn't mentioned a swap deal with Osman at all. So let's just be very clear. Fabrizio is not talking about a swap deal with Osman and Rasmus. He's not talking about that. It's never had any relevant journalists talking about it, really. What he is saying is that obviously certain people are putting stories out there about Rasmus, and there would be interest. There has been clubs that have approached Man United and Rasmus about whether there is any prospect of him moving in the summer. I would take this as a positive. I think that those clubs that are approaching Man United or asking Rasmus's representatives about it just shows exactly what some of us think. I think there's a very good striker there. Obviously, he's not had the best of season. Obviously, it's not been the best season for Manchester United, but the fact that clubs would be interested if Man United are looking to sell, I think it just shows what I see and what some people see as well, that there is a striker there that can do a job in, up front for a football side. And Italian clubs, Spanish clubs, apparently, according to Fabrizio. I just don't see that being, as I said last night and this week, I just don't see that being United's avenue, really, because if you let Rasmus go, you need to bring two strikers in. And I think that's what people are missing here. I don't think Rasmus wants to go. I don't think Amrin wants him to go. I think he wants another striker. And I think ideally he wants Gyökeres. And I think that's what he wants. Now, if that happened and Rasmus said, I don't want to be second fiddle, I want to go and play first team football somewhere, then maybe that's what this is all about. We never think about it from the players' side. But from Manchester United side, we need 2 strikers. Obi Martin is not going to be ready next season. I think we've got a very interesting player there. He's been with the Danish under-21s. He's 17. He's not actually ready to be Man United's second striker yet. And we've got to be... I like him as the third striker, or we loan him out. But we do need 2 strikers. Imagine if you sold Rasmus and you brought in Osman, and then Osman does his hamstring for 6 weeks. Who's playing up front again? So we need 2 strikers. Ideally, I think the plan will be to keep Rasmus and bring another player in. And I think that's where we're at here. But it is interesting that Fabrizio is saying that because of some of the stories, some clubs have inquired about the availability. But let's not forget as well, and I think people do forget about this, like we can talk about signing anybody, but the club is broke and therefore the club will be looking to sell to buy. So if any offer comes in that's really good for a player, then I think United will certainly listen to it, whether it be Mainu, Rasmus, Garnacho or whoever. But the interesting thing about someone like Rasmus and Onana is that they're only 2 years in this summer to their stay at Manchester United, and we paid 50 for Onana and we paid, was it 60 for Rasmus? So amortization, you'd be needing to recoup 40 million for Rasmus just not to make a loss on FFP. So it's not as easy as saying, well, let's sell Rasmus and buy Osman, because if you sell Rasmus for 40 million, you've actually not made any money. You've just actually just broken even. So that's not 40 million of pound pure profit. Whereas if you sell Garnacho for 50 million pounds, it's 50 million pounds of pure profit that technically can be used to spend on Osman. Whereas for Rasmus, it would just be getting your money back. So yeah, I know what. Some people will jump on that Romano story, but when you listen to what he said and you don't read an aggregator quote, what he actually said is that some clubs have inquired to see what's actually happening. And if he was moving in the summer, then they'd be interested. But what I've been told is that those clubs inquiring aren't knocking on the door saying, we'll give you 80 million pounds for Rasmus. Of course they're bloody not. They're knocking on the door going, we'll give you 40 or we'll take him on loan. And that's what people are inquiring about. And I think that's the important part of that story, is that, yes, there are clubs interested in Rasmus if he's available, but they're not sat there ready to, with a blank check saying, name the price. They're there going, we'll take him on loan off you, or we'll give you 35 million or something like that. And everybody knows Man United are desperate. So I think this is the most important thing, and this is why I love this community, because you see Fabrizio saying, oh yeah, there's clubs interested in Rasmus if he's available, and people start thinking, yeah, swap him for Osman. They don't think about the financial fair play, that we won't make any profit on Rasmus, and they also don't think about the reality, and I think Patrick Lynch mentioned this a few weeks ago, is that this could be a very long, drawn-out summer for Manchester United, because we've already missed out on Kenda because we've got to sell to buy, and we're going to have to sell to buy, and people know we're going to have to sell to buy. So no one's going to knock on the door and say, hey, we'd love to sign Delo off you for 50 million pounds. They're not. They're going to go, we'll give you 25 million. Yeah, they're going to undercut us, and that's going to be problematic as well. But on the striker situation, I think that what Fabrizio had to say about Ekitike was very interesting. Which I'll talk about in a moment, because Ray Carl, we've got a bit of a target here for you to hit if you want the live show. So check that out in the live chat. Exactly, we need 2 centre forwards. We can't sell Rasmus and have just one up front, relying on Obi Martin, says Ray Carl. Hope you're doing well, mate. Legend. Keel Robinson says Soleimani, Job, Davies, Gomez, Ethan, Mbappe, says Keel. Send Rasmus to Bayern plus 30 million buy obligation, says Enchanted Angel. We can't... It's an opinion, Enchanted Angel, but we can't be... Listen to what Ray said there. We need 2 strikers. We can't loan one of our strikers out. That just can't happen. And remember, but I agree, I think a lot of people... Philippe, welcome to Members Club. I think a lot of people will be asking for loan deals out of Man United, because you look at what Rashford and Antony have done, but that's not going to help us. We've got to do that, of course. Lloyd Dingle, welcome to the Members Club. But it was interesting what Fabrizio said about Ekitike, because it's funny, isn't it? We've had a bit of chat this week about Ekitike, the Eintracht Frankfurt striker, and I think some people have been a bit uncertain about him. The funny thing is, he's just scored a hat-trick last night for the under-21s. Fabrizio's update is that basically Ekitike will be leaving Eintracht Frankfurt this summer. The Premier League is the most likely outcome. There is interest, but no firm talks with anybody. I think we're out that race already. I mean, I'm here to be proven wrong, but I think we're out the Ekitike race already. I mean, I can almost see Newcastle cashing in on Isak now, taking Ekitike at half the price and him being the next Isak. I'm not saying that's going to happen, and if I've called that, I'm a bloody genius. But I can see Newcastle going, this Ekitike looks really good. They were linked to Newcastle were linked to him a couple of years ago as well. I could see Newcastle maybe selling Isak for 100 million, buying Ekitike for 60 or 65, and they make a load of profit, and then they bring a striker in that actually will probably end up in the next 2 or 3 years being the next Isak. But he's got lots of potential, like ABC says. But I think we're priced out of that deal straight away. He is going to go for north of 65 million, I think. Definitely 60 million. And we are not going to spend that money on a player like that. We're just not going to do it. So I think we're gradually eliminating striker options. I've got to be honest, I'm not that hot on Sesko. I was reading about Ekitike this morning, and it's absolutely true. When you look at his game compared to Sesko, he's had a better season at Eintracht Frankfurt than Sesko's had at Leipzig. And yeah, Sesko's got the long shot on him. I think that's a very good thing. But I think in every other area, you could argue that Ekitike is better. So I'm not too sure about Sesko. I'd rather he ended up somewhere else. I might be completely wrong, but I don't see that being happen. And I can't read your full name, Mukatawa. I can't read your full name. Sorry. It's not being done deliberately. I just don't want to ruin it. So yeah, I mean, I think in relation to the striker situation, I still think, as we were talking about yesterday, Jonathan David is probably what Man United are looking to do as a free, or a Liam Delap on the cheap. I don't see Ekitike, Osimhen, Gyökeres, even a Sesko. I don't see those players being the sort of player that we're looking at. Fabrizio said this morning that Man United are looking to bring in an important striker, and that led him on to talking about the Rasmus situation. But let's be honest, if we bring Liam Delap or Jonathan David in, you don't sell Rasmus to bring them in. Like that would be ridiculous. Rasmus goes and you bring Liam Delap or Jonathan David in. We've got one striker again. So I think that's where we're shopping, and I think it will be very evident this summer of what Man United's plans are, really, because when we see the likes of Gyökeres, Osimhen, Ekitike, where they go and what we end up with, I think we'll understand more about where this football club is heading. I mean, it was a very interesting video last night, wasn't it? Talking about what people like Nicky Butt are saying and what you're saying about the situation at Manchester United. So, yeah, I think with the striker situation, let's wait and see. Jonathan Valdez with a super chat says, I've only been watching the show for a couple of years now, but just cool to see the United stand before reach 200 million subscribers. Congratulations, big ups you and the show from California. Thank you very much, mate. And Ewan MacGyver says, 10 years, been here since 1,000 subs, and I'm proud of that. I was once on your show and you said I had a voice for radio. Keep it up, Mark, says Ewan. Thank you, mate. Absolute legend. Hope you've checked out the live show. If you want to watch the live show, we've set a little target in the live chat as well. We might release it for everybody a little bit later. Rashford increased his price last night, says Kev the Red. Watch the game, mate. I actually am going to be very, very fair here. I thought you could watch that Rashford performance and say it was not very good, and I thought you could watch that performance and say it was quite good. I think it was I don't think it was terrible, but I don't think it was as good as some people think. Which is pretty much what he's done for Villa over the last few weeks. I thought it was a very Aston Villa performance. Definitely, but I'll tell you what I would say though. loses the ball, sprints to get it back. Why was that not happening in a United shirt? So obviously that fresh challenge has done him well. I think the bottom line for Man United is to get the money for Marcus Rashford. And then we can just leave Player FC with him. I mean, I'm tired of the people in the United fan base glowing up a player that really wants to move on, clearly needs to move on, and we need to move on from. So hopefully he keeps doing what he did last night, where people are going, oh, it was really good. And I think that he's obviously put in the effort in an England shirt and an Aston Villa shirt that he didn't put in a Man United shirt. And you know, you can send your death threats to people who say stuff like that, or you can actually ask the question of the player and say, why didn't you run like that in a Man United shirt for the last year? Because that's the question, isn't it? But all the best. Hopefully he finds a club. Rasmus in an Arsenal shirt gets 20 goals a season, says Ollie. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Want to talk about the situation with... we've been linked to James Trafford. I don't necessarily know if there is anything in this story, but I wish there was. I don't know whether... I want to talk about Enmika as well, or Micha. I can't really remember how you pronounce his name because we've been linked to him before. Dortmund have basically set the price for him. But I do want to talk about the goalkeeper situation very quickly, because there's a few, I wouldn't say great sources talking around James Trafford over the last sort of 2 weeks. Burnley are probably going to get promoted, so he wouldn't be cheap. Homegrown player as well. I think he had a bit of a nightmare first season, didn't he, when he came into the Premier League, and then actually ended up getting replaced a little bit. Was he not the goalkeeper that got fouled against Luton as well? He was the guy that sort of became the poster boy for you can foul goalkeepers now. He's from City's Academy, says ABC. Look, I have got no interest in giving you names for goalkeepers because I have got no idea about what the budget is. What I think Man United should do is Onana, we're never going to get the money back on Onana. So you've got to look at amortization. You've got to look at what we paid. We paid £50 million. We'd probably need to get 35 million to make profit on him this summer. We won't get that. So I think Onana's going to have to stay. So what I would be looking to do is, and I don't think Onana wants to go, by the way. I think he wants to stay at Man United. So you've got a player that's reluctant to go, and you've probably got no interest in him anyway. So what you've got to do in that situation is you've got to realise that you're never going to get your money back, and you've also got to make the player want to go. The best way of doing that is not by spending £60 million on Costa from Porto. The best way of doing that is buying a goalkeeper that's up and coming, that's going to dislodge him very, very quickly, and be given the support and patience to do it. I therefore think that, you know, you're looking at your James Traffords. People have mentioned the goalkeeper at Lille, that Suzuki guy at Parma. I think that is where Man United should be looking at this summer, and there's no excuse not to do it. Now, Biinda is back in training. That came out last night. He's back training, and they're hopeful that he'll be back in a couple of weeks. But I don't see Biinda being the guy. I might be completely wrong. It would solve a problem. But I certainly think that we should be looking to bring in a goalkeeper for around 15, 20 million quid, who is maybe the Lille goalkeeper, is maybe the Parma goalkeeper, is maybe James Trafford. 15 to 25 million pounds. Bring a goalkeeper in that's going to push Onana. And it won't take a lot if Amorim, as we spoke about at the start of the week, is of the same opinion as many of you, that long-term Onana's not the guy. So if Onana's not the guy long-term, and you can get a goalkeeper that's good now, but long-term will get better, you go with that goalkeeper, don't you? And I think that, for Manchester United, would make a lot of sense. So whether it's James Trafford or anybody else to that sort of criteria, I think that's where we should be going for. I do not think that we should be going... I don't think we will be able to afford, and I don't think we're going to move Onana on anyway to go for somebody more experienced. Keel Robinson says Rashford ignored the overlap. Look, I'm going to ignore Rashford. I think that what he's doing at Villa in England is great for him. What he did for Manchester United wasn't good enough, and we need to move on. That's what we're trying to do, don't we? And also... that you know, there's nothing really wrong with that. I suppose it's it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Let's have a quick look at this other story around Enmica. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here. Let me get rid of that. So I've probably got the name wrong, but he has been linked to us as a potential midfield option at Manchester United. I was just looking at his contract situation. So he joined Dortmund in 2023, and his contract's up in 2028. So still got 3 years left on his deal. Centre midfielder. I think he was previously part of the Man City. And another one, I think he was part of the Man City development squad. Apparently, Dortmund have knocked a 50 million price tag on him, which is look. I think it's so difficult to clarify with any confidence what Manchester United are looking to do. He is a career mode legend, Paperman. It's so difficult to clarify what Manchester United are looking to do in the transfer market. There are many pretenders out there who will give you a big list of players to keep an eye on, and they'll be praying that they've thrown the dart at the right player. They don't have a bloody clue what's going on with Man United's recruitment. Fabrizio, David Ornstein don't really know what's going on at the moment, and they'll be the first people to know. So Man United aren't leaking out their transfer list to the United Stand or any other journalist or aggregator. So, you know, if you want to go down that road of, oh yeah, they're in the know, they're not in the know. What they might be doing is spending a bit of time analysing the market and going, it could be one of these 6 or 7 players. I quite enjoy this. There's a lot to be critical of around Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos and the Glazers, but I quite enjoyed the last summer transfer window because it was exciting. De Ligt was not really being mentioned in March. Neither was Agate. Neither was Xerxes. Neither was Yoro. None of these players were being mentioned in March, but there was big lists of players that we're apparently looking at, you know. So the same thing could happen again. Hopefully it will do. But on top of that, we spent quite a lot of money last summer. I don't know what money we're going to have this summer. And I think that sort of, when you're talking about Enmica at Dortmund and Man United need to bring a midfielder in, I don't know whether we've got £50 million to go and spend on a player like that. We have been linked to Edison at Atalanta in the past, and he would be a very interesting player. We are looking to move Casemiro on. We do need more than Agate, Collier, and Mainu and Bruno in that midfield. Like, we definitely do. So it's like the striker situation. We need 2 strikers. We need probably 5 or 6 midfielders. Probably need 5 or 6 number 10s. Probably need 4 or 5 wide players. We need 7 or 8 centre backs. So we are short in huge elements in that team. But when talking about the midfielder, I mean, Enmica's going to cost you £50 million. Going back to Sporting and Amorim, Hojlund is going to cost you £60 million. Edison's going to cost you £50 million. These are all players that, have we got the money to do that and get a striker and get this and get that? I don't know where Man United are going to generate these funds from. It doesn't mean that they won't, but I don't know how we're going to. You're better off probably looking at clubs that are RB linked, not necessarily exclusively. So Salzburg, maybe Leipzig, looking in the Belgian league at clubs like Genk, etc. Just looking at the sort of history someone like Faval has, and Austrian league, you know, there are decent players at Salzburg. I did a watch along for them back in November. That there may be players there, but the profile of Man United's summer transfer window is going to be very interesting. Do they go and buy a high-profile shirt seller and then a load of kids? Or do they spread it around and go for a little bit more younger players that have a little bit, you know, Tyler Dibling costs you 40 million quid. You know, do you go and do that sort of thing? So it's very hard at the moment to predict what Man United are going to do. And what we do know from Omar Barada as the CEO is that they are going to invest in the football side of things, but not to the extent that people think. So it's very, very difficult. Acid23 says, winning the Europa is worth 27 million to United. Champions League means higher wages. The total for this squad is 22.5 million. Does this pose a problem? When you look at Man United's wage bill at the moment, I think that we're already fourth. I think that whether it's PM says Enmika's 50 million euros, not pounds. Yeah, but it's still 42 million quid, mate. That's, and I get what you're talking about, but when we're talking about the context of Manchester United, we're not in the game of 42 million pounds being cheap anymore. That's a considerable amount of our budget. So, you know, but going back to what Acid23 said there, I think that there is a conversation to be had that we continually get fed about our wage bill, our wage bill, our wage bill. We've got the fourth biggest wage bill anyway, not the first. Our wage bills come down a lot already, and they still want to take it down. And I think at some point, you get to a point where you can't sack half your workforce and still be an efficient football club. Man United have done that. You need to reduce your wage bill, but when it's down to 7th or 8th in the Premier League, then you've got a problem. We're down to 4th with our wage bill now, and still they're talking about wage bill, wage bill. Like, at some point, you do get what you pay for. And I understand we've been overpaying for a long time and there are certain players that need removing, but how long before we're like 6th, 7th in the league for our wage bill, but people are talking about us winning Premier League titles? What I'm saying is, yes, we've spent ridiculous money at Man United over the last decade, but you can cut too far. My concern is that, oh yeah, let's keep cutting the wage bill down. Let's keep sacking people. And it gets to a point where there's 6 or 7 other clubs paying better wages than us, and there's 3 or 4 clubs with more staff than we've got. And it's like, well, you're trying to do it on a budget. And I don't know that that's going to be the way. Football training, welcome to the members club. Thank you very much. It's CJR says, Sir Jim said we're looking for the next Mbappe when he first came in. Liam Delap and Jonathan David definitely ain't the next Mbappe. I know exactly what interview you're talking about, mate, and I think I would ignore that like the plague. I do think that Sir Jim Radcliffe's interview from a year ago, he probably wishes he could delete it. I know the one you're talking about. It was the one where he spoke about Arsenal and said that, you know, at the end of the day, they've done it the right way. Arteta was getting a lot of stick and they stuck by him. And now look, and you think, well, you know, I was quite encouraged by that when Sir Jim Radcliffe said that. It was around this time as well. He did an interview, I think it was a cycling podcast, and he said, Arsenal stuck by Arteta through difficult times, and look at them now. He spent money on Ten Hag, he stuck by him, and then the season started, he was gone by early November, so he lied. We want best in class, we clearly don't. We want the next Mbappe, we clearly don't. So I think that whole interview was just a load of crap. But it's a week anniversary to an interview he did in the Times where he basically spent half of it telling us how good the Glazers are. So Sir Jim Radcliffe doing interviews that make no sense is not really breaking news, isn't it? Arsenal haven't won anything, said Richard. And your point is? I don't think it's... Are Arsenal a better football club than Newcastle? Newcastle just won the Carabao Cup. I'd rather be Arsenal. We've won the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup in the last 2 years. I'd rather be Arsenal. Like, the team they've got, the competitions they're competing in, they're in a much better position than Man United. Trophies are nice. They're brilliant for your Wikipedia page, but are Arsenal in a better position than Manchester United? Of course they are. They've got a better team, and they're in a better position. They're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. They're second in the Premier League for the 3rd year in a row. Yes, you want to win trophies, but there is also trophies can mask reality. Arsenal are in a better position than most clubs in the Premier League. They do need to win trophies, but the minute they win a trophy, that's comment from Richard Jack, sounds stupid. You know, you're judging success on trophies. But some people do. But that's not the way the world of modern football is set up, mate. Unless you're winning the Champions League or the Premier League, the modern world of football is set up on being in the top 4, generating money. That's the modern way. I didn't create it. You can boo me. You can cheer me. I didn't create it. But the modern football world success is measured by how much money you're making and how aggressive you can be in the transfer market. And they spent £100 million on Declan Rice 2 summers ago. Man United are saying we don't want to make signings like that anymore. Wrong. You do need to make those signings. They don't need to be fucking Anthony. That's the problem. There's nothing wrong with spending £100 million on Declan Rice. I mean, how can a £100 million player be seen as a good deal? And Declan Rice for £100 million is a good deal. Like, he's been a brilliant signing. But Man United are now going, we don't want to do those signings anymore. Wrong. You can do those deals, but it's got to be for the right player. We spent it on the wrong players. 80 million on Harry Maguire, ridiculous. 80 million on Anthony, ridiculous. You know, we've been doing it for too long on the wrong players. Rice is overrated, says Melps. Mate, I would take Declan Rice in a Man United shirt for £100 million now. 100%. I don't think he's overrated at all. I think he does the job he's meant to do very, very well. It's not the total wage bill that's the issue. It's the fact that if you break it down, a big proportion of it is not in the first team at the moment, says Glenn C. Yeah, fair point. Well made. Fade says, with Mount, Yoro, Mainu, Heaven, Maguire returning after the international break, do you believe we have a higher chance of winning the Europa League and saving our season? I said we'd win the Europa League in January. I've got to stand by it. Obviously, players like that coming back makes us stronger. But we have got it. I think that we're gonna need some luck in the Europa League. Like, we're still very vulnerable mentally and as a team. There are teams out there in that tournament that could cause us problems. I mean, look, Spurs are playing Eintracht Frankfurt. I think they could get knocked out, and then Eintracht Frankfurt become a risk on that side of the draw. I think Lyon, Bilbao, probably in the semi-final. You know, there are clubs in this tournament that can knock us out. The distraction of the Premier League is the thing that concerns me. Like, it worries me that Amorim might have somebody in his ear saying, if you can finish 3 spaces higher, that's another 9 million quid for the club. Because basically, every position you finish higher in the Premier League is 3 million quid. Look, Sir Jim Radcliffe would get out of his car for 3 quid at the moment. If he saw a pound on the sidewalk, he'd stop his car and take it. So £3 million will not be sniffed at by Man United. Now, what Amorim needs to be told is, don't worry about the Premier League, focus on the Europa League. It's exactly what Mourinho did when we won it against Ajax. He gave up on the Prem, played reserves, and focused on the Europa League. That's what needs to happen. But we've got mercenaries in charge of our football club, and I think they'll be saying, we need to finish high in the Premier League as well. So you've got to take it seriously. Now, if he takes the Europa League and the Premier League seriously, that becomes problematic. Because as we know, you're playing Thursday, Sunday, you're playing Man City, you're playing Newcastle away. Right when you're playing Lyon, we've got Forest away, we've got Bournemouth away, we've got Brentford away, we've got Villa away, Villa at home, we've got Chelsea away. We've got tough games. And I think if we take the Premier League seriously and the Europa League seriously, it's going to make it very, very difficult. And Mourinho is the blueprint for this. Go back and look when we won against Ajax. We got to a point with injuries. That's when we had Zlatan out, Luke Shaw out, Bailly out. And he just changed his team. And I remember us going to Arsenal with Twan Sebi at right back, and he played brilliant. So look, I think that's the problem. But money is the motivator of everything around Man United at the moment. And if they sense we might be able to finish 2 or 3 places higher and earn another 10 million quid, I don't think Amorim's going to get the freedom to say it doesn't matter, but he needs to. It's all or nothing on the Europa League, basically. It's all or nothing. Keel Robinson says success is relative to expectation. And are there any players in the relegation clubs worth signing, says Tech? Well, we spoke about Tyler Dibbling at Southampton. Obviously, Liam Delap at Ipswich. But look, Man United bought Roy Keane from Nottingham Forest when they got relegated for a British transfer record. But Liverpool and Blackburn wanted him as well because he's been identified as being one of the best players in a long time coming through. He just so happened to be in a team that got relegated. So you can buy players from relegated sides who are worth signing. What's not worth doing is signing players from relegation sides because they're cheap and they look okay. Like, you need to buy players that are, you know, and maybe Liam Delap falls into that category. and maybe Tyler Dibbling does, but I don't think Liam Delap and Tyler Dibbling are going to move the needle massively for Manchester United this summer, and yet you could spend £80 million on those two players. So, Local Cookie says 10 points off Europe and no FA Cup to get us into the Europa League. Europa League is the only team that can save us to qualify for the Champions League. Thank you very much. Rest in peace, George Foreman, says Linda. Yeah, saw that this morning. Get Cunha, says ABC. I mean, it's the player I want. It's the player I want. I've said this before. That's the player that I really, really want at Manchester United. Nothing being said about him at the moment. Obviously, he's got... I mean, look, he'd probably end up at bloody Arsenal, won't he? But I think he's the player that could... I like Cunha. I think he's got the right experience, the right age, and the right aggression. That's the player I like. But I like... Tech says he's got temper issues. Don't we all? But it means he's got passion, mate. That's the thing for me. What's your thoughts on Cherki to Man United, says Porto? I mean, good player, but again, are we shopping in that shop? Look, I think your Arsenals, your Liverpools, your Manchester Cities, your Chelseas, they're shopping at Waitrose. We're in Aldi. You can get some good deals. We don't want to be in Poundland. I don't know where... I think as an analogy, I don't know where Man United are shopping. It's a great point, and I'll put it like this. It's really hard to understand the summer transfer window. In a way, it's exciting because the unknown can be exciting, but it's really hard to know what we're doing this summer. I think every other summer we've had an idea. This summer, we don't know what shop we're shopping in. Are we in Waitrose? Probably not. Are we in Aldi? Probably. Could we be in Poundland? Maybe. And I don't know. Maybe we're going to run into Waitrose, nick something, and then run back to Aldi. I don't know. But that makes it really difficult for fans to be enthusiastic, because I think in years gone by, we'd be all in on Gyökeres. We'd have the money and we'd be in Europe. But we don't have the money and we're not in Europe. So we're probably not in that, you know? And I think that makes it really, really difficult. What I would say is, though, and it could be quite frustrating, I don't think I can remember a summer transfer window where there's so much going on. Like, I did say this after the Leicester game. The March international break will be very interesting. We'll get a lot of updates on a lot of players in the club, outside the club, and we already have in week one. These are genuine, like Ekitike is going to come to the Premier League. Jonathan David is in talks with a number of clubs. One of them might be us. Liam Delap's going to leave Ipswich. You know, Gyökeres and Osman are available. That's just strikers. Sesko's available. So the striker market is varied, but it's there. 6, 7, 8 strikers available this summer. Similar things happening with other players and other positions as well. We mentioned Yildiz. It's genuine. Like, the problem we have is, like, there's loads of stuff out there, but we probably haven't got that much money. More like a car boot sale, accidentally treasure, says Keel Robinson. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I'll leave it there this morning. We didn't quite hit the target on the live chat. I don't think people understood it. So it remains in the members section, the live show. But there are talks to maybe release it to everybody because it's such a good show. But if you are a member, don't forget to check out the live show. I've watched it in its entirety now. It's just so well done. It's brilliant. Really, really good. If we get... how many likes do we normally get on a video? I tell you what, we will get about 100,000 views on this. So if we got 5,000 likes, we'll pop it up. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you in a bit.